The warning lights on Sam Holloway's cargo ship had been flashing for 10 minutes when the massive warship appeared out of nowhere. Sam was a simple man who moved supplies between colonies, and he had never seen anything like the vessel that now blocked his path. It was black and covered in battle scars, and it was at least 50 times the size of his small ship. "Lisa, tell me that's not what I think it is," Sam said to his co-pilot. Lisa Brennan checked her screens, and her face went pale. "Veraki warship. 9th Fleet markings. Sam, we need to run." But before Sam could turn the ship around, a beam of light locked onto them. They could not move. The Veraki were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They stood 8 feet tall, looked like wolves that walked on 2 legs, and they had conquered dozens of worlds. No one escaped from them. Sam held his breath as he heard the sound of something attaching to his ship. Then came footsteps, heavy and slow, moving through his cargo hold. He grabbed an old pistol from under his seat, knowing it would do nothing against a Veraki soldier. The door to his cockpit opened, and Sam saw the largest Veraki he had ever seen. The alien had silver and black fur, golden eyes that seemed to glow, an armor that showed the marks of 100 battles. This was no ordinary soldier. This was someone important. But what Sam saw next made him freeze. Behind the massive warrior stood 3 small figures. Children. Veraki children, with soft fur and wide, frightened eyes. The biggest one was trying to look brave. The smallest one was holding onto his sister's hand and crying quietly. The great warrior looked at Sam for a long moment. Then he did something that Sam would never forget. He dropped to his knees. "Human," the Veraki said, his voice deep and rough. "I am Kale Vorn, Alpha of the 9th Fleet. I have killed more enemies than I can count. I have never begged for anything in my life." He paused and looked back at his children. "Today I beg." Sam did not lower his pistol, but his hand was shaking. "What do you want?" "My own people have betrayed me," Kale said. "The High Council fears my power, so they sent assassins to destroy my bloodline. My ship is dying. My enemies will be here within hours. I cannot fight them and protect my cubs at the same time." Lisa stepped forward slowly. "You want us to hide your children?" Kale nodded. "Humans are everywhere. You blend in. You survive. The Council does not watch your kind closely because they think you are weak and unimportant." He looked at Sam with those burning golden eyes. "Hide my cubs among your people. Raise them. Keep them alive until I return or until you hear of my death." "And if you die?" Sam asked. "Then they are yours," Kale said simply. "Raise them as humans if you must. Just keep them breathing." Sam looked at the children. The oldest boy was watching him with suspicion, ready to fight even though he was barely half Sam's height. The girl was studying everything in the cockpit, taking mental notes. The little one had stopped crying and was now staring at Sam with huge, curious eyes. Sam had been a foster parent once, back on Earth, before he took to the stars. He had raised 7 children who were not his own, and he had loved every single one of them. His heart broke looking at these small aliens who were about to lose their father. "What's in it for us?" Lisa asked. She was always the practical one. Kale reached into his armor and pulled out a small device. Star maps to hidden places no human has ever seen. Technology that will advance your species by centuries. My personal oath that if I survive, Earth and all human worlds will be under my protection forever. He placed the device on the floor. But I do not think these things matter to this man. Sam finally lowered his pistol. "No, they don't." He walked past Kale and knelt down in front of the children. "Hey, there. I'm Sam. This is Lisa. We have a spare room on this ship, and I make really good soup. Do you like soup?" The little one tilted his head. "What is soup?" Sam smiled. "Oh, kid, you're going to love soup." Kale stood up and walked to his children. He knelt down and gathered all three of them in his massive arms. He spoke to them in his own language, soft words that Sam could not understand but could feel. It was the sound of a father saying goodbye. Then Kale switched back to human speech. "Ren, you are the oldest. Protect your brother and sister, but do not let anger control you. Learn from these humans. Watch how they survive in a universe that thinks they are nothing." The oldest boy, Ren, nodded with tears in his eyes. "Sira, you are clever. Use your mind. Study these people and their history. They have won battles they should have lost. Find out how." The girl, Sarah, held her father's hand tightly but said nothing. "And Toph, my little one." Kale picked up the smallest child and held him close. "Remember that your father loved you. Even if I never come back, remember that." Toph wrapped his small arms around his father's neck. "I don't want you to go. I know." Kale's voice cracked. "But I must, so that you can live." He handed Toph to Sam, who took the small alien child carefully. Toph weighed almost nothing. He was warm, and his fur was soft like a puppy's. Kale walked back to the airlock. He turned one last time to look at his children. "Be good. Be strong. Be better than me." Then he was gone. Sam felt the Viraki ship detach from his own. Through the window, he watched the massive warship turn and jump into hyperspace, heading toward the approaching enemy fleet. Heading toward almost certain death. In the cargo hold, three small children were crying. Sam sat down on the floor with them. He did not try to tell them everything would be okay. He did not lie to them. He just sat with them, let them cry, and held the little one in his arms. "Lisa," he said quietly, "set a course for New Montana. The long way. No main routes." Lisa nodded. "What are we going to do, Sam?" Sam looked at the three children. Ren was trying to stop crying and be strong. Sira was holding her brother's hand and staring out the window where her father had disappeared. Toph had fallen asleep against Sam's chest, exhausted from grief. "We're going to raise them," Sam said. "That's what we're going to do." The small cargo ship turned away from the battle and flew into the darkness of space, carrying three orphan cubs toward an uncertain future among humans. 3 more years had passed on New Montana. The cubs were no longer cubs. They were young adults by Viraki standards, and they had changed in ways that would have shocked their father. Ren stood nearly 7 feet tall now, with thick gray fur and muscles that could break stone. But his eyes were calm, always watching, always thinking. The wild rage that used to burn inside him had become something else. It was still there, but it was controlled now, like a fire in a furnace instead of a wildfire. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly how dangerous he was, and chose not to show it. Sira had grown into a sharp and serious young female. She wore simple clothes and kept her fur short for convenience. Her room had become a planning center filled with maps, reports, and strategy books. She knew more about military history than most human generals. She could look at a problem and see 10 solutions while others were still trying to understand the question. Toph had become tall and handsome, with soft brown fur and a smile that made everyone like him instantly. He dressed like the human teenagers he had grown up with and spoke perfect English without any accent. He could walk into a room full of strangers and walk out with 5 new friends. People told him their secrets without knowing why. It was a gift. Sam's hair had turned completely gray now. He was 60 years old and his body was starting to slow down. But his mind was still sharp, and his heart was still full of love for the 3 aliens, who had become his children. Everything changed on a quiet evening in autumn. A burning ship fell from the sky and crashed in the fields outside town. Ren was the first to reach it. Inside, He found a dying Varaki warrior wearing the old colors of his father's fleet. The warrior looked at Ren with shock in his eyes. You are Kale's son. I can see it in your face. Ren carried the warrior back to the farm. Lisa tried to save him, but his wounds were too serious. He had only hours to live. The warrior's name was Dren, and he had served under Kale for 30 years. He told the cubs everything. Your father is alive, Dren said, his voice weak. But he is captured. The High Council finally caught him 6 months ago. They have been torturing him ever since. They plan to execute him publicly in the grand arena on our homeworld. They want to crush any hope of rebellion. Sira knelt beside the dying warrior. How many loyal soldiers remain? Maybe 3,000. Scattered and hiding. We have no leader, no plan. We have been waiting to die. Dren looked at the 3 cubs with fading eyes. But you are alive. The Alpha's bloodline survives. You could unite us. You could give us something to fight for. Dren died before dawn. They buried him in the field where he had fallen. The 3 siblings sat together in silence for a long time. Finally, Ren spoke. We have to go. We have to save him. It's a trap, Sira said. The public execution is designed to draw out any remaining loyalists. If we go, we walk right into their hands. So what do you suggest? We just let our father die? No, Sira said calmly. I suggest we do something they won't expect. We don't go as Varaki rebels charging in for revenge. We go as something else entirely. Toph had been quiet, but now he looked up. We go as humans taught us to go. We make allies. We build something bigger than just our father's soldiers. We make friends with every enemy the High Council has ever made. And then we show up with an army they never saw coming. Ren stared at his little brother. That could take months. Father might not have that long. Then we work fast, Toph said. But we work smart. That's what Dad always said. Work smart, not hard. Sam had been listening from the doorway. He stepped into the room, and all 3 cubs turned to look at him. You're going, Sam said. It was not a question. We have to, Ren replied. He's our father. Our real father. Sam nodded slowly. There was no anger in his face, only a deep sadness mixed with pride. I know. I'd known this day would come since the moment I took you in. He walked to an old chest in the corner of the room and opened it. Inside was a small ship's key and a stack of documents. This is the key to a courier ship I've been keeping hidden in the old mine outside town. It's fast and it's quiet. The documents are star maps and contact information for every smuggler, trader, and rebel sympathizer I've met in 30 years of hauling cargo. Some of them owe me favors. Use them. Lisa came in carrying 3 bags filled with medical supplies, food, and equipment. I've been packing since that ship crashed. I knew what it meant. The cubs looked at their human parents with tears in their eyes. You saved us, Sira said. You raised us. You taught us everything. And now it's time for you to use what you learned, Sam said. He pulled all 3 of them into a hug, even though Ren was now much bigger than him. I'm proud of you. All of you. Whatever happens out there, remember who you are. Not just Varaki. Not just Kale's children. You are my children too. Toph was crying openly. I don't want to leave you, Dad. I know, son. But some things are more important than what we want. Your father is out there, and people who believe in him are dying. You can help them. That's not a choice. That's a calling. They said their goodbyes at the hidden ship that night. Lisa hugged each of them and gave them final medical instructions. Sam shook Ren's hand, kissed Sira's forehead, and held Toph for a long time. Remember the most important lesson, Sam said as they boarded the ship. The universe respects strength. but it remembers kindness. Be both. The small ship lifted off and flew up into the stars. Sam and Lisa watched until it disappeared from sight. Think they'll be okay? Lisa asked. Sam wiped his eyes. They're my kids. They'll be amazing. Far above, the ship carrying 3 young Viraki turned toward the heart of the galaxy. They were flying toward war, toward danger, toward an empire that wanted them dead. But they were not afraid. They had been raised by humans. And humans had taught them that the impossible was just something that had not been done yet. 5 years had passed since that night on the cargo ship. Sam Holloway now lived on a small farm on the colony world called New Montana. The planet had wide open plains, blue skies, and quiet towns where people did not ask too many questions. It was a good place to disappear. The 3 Viraki children had grown. Ren was now 11 cycles old, which made him almost as tall as Sam. His fur had darkened to a deep gray, and his eyes had the same golden fire as his father's. He spent his mornings helping Sam with the farm and his afternoons training with old veterans who lived in town. He was learning to fight, but more importantly, he was learning to control his anger. Sarah was 10 cycles old and smarter than anyone Sam had ever met. She read every book she could find about human history, war, science, and philosophy. Her room was filled with papers covered in notes. She asked questions that made Sam's head hurt, but he loved watching her mind work. Toph was 8 cycles old now, and he barely remembered his real father. To him, Sam was dad. That was just how it was. Toph laughed easily, made friends with everyone, and had a gift for talking his way out of trouble. The human children at school loved him despite his strange appearance. He was simply too friendly to dislike. Sam had legally adopted all 3 of them through complicated paperwork that Lisa had somehow made happen. On paper, they were his children. In his heart, they had been his children since that first night when little Toph fell asleep in his arms. Lisa ran a small medical clinic 2 miles down the road. She helped the cubs understand their own bodies as they grew. Viraki biology was different from humans, but Lisa learned quickly. She became like an aunt to them, always there with medicine when they were sick and advice when they were confused. But life was not always easy for the cubs. One afternoon, Toph came home with blood on his face. 2 older human boys had cornered him behind the schoolhouse and called him names. Monster, beast, alien freak. They had pushed him down and kicked him. Ren saw his little brother's tears, and something dark woke up inside him. He ran to town without saying a word. Sam chased after him, but Ren was fast stopped by the time Sam reached the schoolyard. Ren had already found the 2 boys. He stood over them, his claws out, his teeth showing. The boys were on the ground, screaming in fear. Ren had not hurt them yet, but he was close. So very close. "Ren," Sam said calmly. "Look at me." Ren's whole body was shaking with rage. "They hurt Toph. I know. And I'm angry too. But this is not how we handle things. They deserve it." "Maybe they do," Sam said. "But what will happen if you hurt them?" "The colony police will come. They will ask questions. They will find out what you really are. And then what happens to Syrah and Toph?" Ren's claws slowly went back in. His breathing slowed. He looked at the crying boys on the ground and stepped back. Sam put a hand on Ren's shoulder. Being strong means knowing when not to use your strength. Those boys are weak and scared. Hurting them won't change that. It will only make them hate you more, and it will put your family in danger. Ren looked at Sam with pain in his eyes. "I just wanted to protect him." "I know, son." "I know." They walked home together in silence. That night, Sam sat with all 3 cubs and talked to them about choosing battles wisely. He told them about human history, about people who won not through violence but through patience and cleverness. Syrah took notes. Months passed. The cubs grew more careful. They learned to blend in, to smile at people who feared them, to prove through actions that they meant no harm. Slowly, the town began to accept them. Ren helped farmers carry heavy loads. Sira tutored struggling students. Toph made everyone laugh with his jokes and stories. But danger never stopped looking for them. One night, Sira came to Sam with a frightened look on her face. She had been listening to space communications on an old radio she had built herself. She heard news about the Varaki Civil War. "Father is still alive," she said, "but he is losing. The High Council declared our whole bloodline as traitors. They are still searching for us." 2 weeks later, a Varaki scout ship landed outside town. Sam made the cubs hide in a secret basement he had built under the barn. Then he walked out to meet the scout with nothing but an old hunting rifle and Lisa standing beside him. The scout was a young Varaki soldier with cold eyes. He showed Sam a picture of Kale and asked if any strange aliens had been seen in the area. Sam shook his head. "Nothing but humans here. Or just farmers. I am looking for 3 Varaki cubs," the scout said. "The children of the traitor Kale. There is a large reward." "Never seen any Varaki children," Sam said. "But I heard some travelers talking about seeing aliens near the eastern colonies. Maybe you should look there?" The scout studied Sam for a long moment. Sam felt his heart beating so hard he thought it would explode. But he kept his face calm. He had played poker with criminals and liars for 20 years. He knew how to hide his fear. Lisa stepped forward and handed the scout a data chip. "Here are records from our colony census. No non-humans registered anywhere in this region. Death records show 3 alien children died in a ship crash about 4 years ago near the outer planets. Could have been the ones you're looking for." The scout took the chip and checked it. The records were fake, of course. Lisa had spent months creating them, just in case. Finally, the scout nodded and returned to his ship. Sam watched it fly away and did not breathe again until it was completely out of sight. That night, Sam gathered the cubs together. "We got lucky today. We might not be lucky next time. You need to be ready for whatever comes." Ren nodded. "Then train us. Really train us. Not just farming and school. Train us to survive." Sam thought about it for a long time. He looked at these 3 children who had become his whole world. They were not human, but they were his. And he would do anything to keep them safe. "Okay," he said. "But we do this my way. Not Varaki way. Human way." Over the next months, Ren trained with every veteran and former soldier in town who would teach him. He learned human combat styles that focused on precision and control instead of raw power. He learned to study his enemies and wait for the right moment. Sira studied tactics and strategy. She read about every human war ever fought, especially the ones where small forces defeated larger armies. She learned that information was the most powerful weapon in the universe. And Toph learned something that humans understood better than any other species. He learned that words could be weapons too. He learned to negotiate, to charm, to make people trust him. He learned that sometimes the strongest thing you could do was make a friend instead of an enemy. The cubs were becoming something new. Not fully Varaki. Not fully human. Something in between. Something the galaxy had never seen before. And somewhere in the stars, their father was still fighting, still hoping that his children were alive. He had no idea what they were becoming. The cubs found the resistance hiding in an asteroid field at the edge of Varaki space. 3,000 warriors lived in hollow rocks and broken ships, waiting for death. They had been running and hiding for years, and hope had left them long ago. When Ren's ship landed in the main base, every warrior stared at him. Rumors had spread fast. The Alpha's children were alive. The bloodline had returned. An old warrior named Commander Drask pushed through the crowd. He was scarred and missing one eye, but he still carried himself like a soldier. He had served under Kale for 40 years. So the cubs have come crawling back, Drask growled. Where were you when we were dying? Where were you when your father was captured? Ren stepped forward calmly. We were growing, learning, preparing. Preparing? Drask laughed bitterly. Look around you, boy. This is what remains of your father's great fleet. Broken ships. Starving soldiers. We don't need preparation. We need a miracle. Sira spoke next. Her voice was quiet but steady. We can give you something better than a miracle. We can give you a plan. The warriors muttered among themselves. A female speaking of battle plans was unusual among Viraki. But Drask was curious enough to listen. What plan could three pups possibly have? Sira pulled out a small projector and displayed a map of the galaxy. The High Council rules through fear. They have conquered or destroyed any species that might challenge them. But conquest creates enemies. The Krell lost half their population to Viraki invasion. The Vryn were driven from their homeworld. The Delori were enslaved for generations. The Ashk traders have been cheated and robbed for centuries. These species hate us, Drask said. They would never help Viraki. They hate the Council. Toph stepped forward with a gentle smile. They hate what Viraki leadership has done. But we are not the Council. And we can offer them something the Council never would. Respect. Partnership. A chance to build something new together. Drask stared at the young male with confusion. You want to beg our enemies for help? That is weakness. No, Ren said firmly. It is wisdom. Humans taught us that the strongest armies are built from allies, not slaves. Fear makes soldiers fight until they can run away. Loyalty makes them fight until they win. Drask was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Pretty words from cubs raised by soft humans. I challenge you, Ren, son of Kale. If you want to lead, prove your strength in the old way. Combat. The crowd of warriors circled around them. This was Viraki tradition. Leadership was earned through blood. Ren removed his weapons and faced Drask. The old commander was still powerful, still deadly despite his age. He attacked with the fury of a true Viraki warrior, all rage and strength and savage instinct. But Ren did not fight like a Viraki. He moved like water, stepping around Drask's attacks instead of meeting them head-on. He used the old warrior's own momentum against him, redirecting instead of resisting. Every time Drask left an opening, Ren struck quick, precise blows that weakened without killing Dot in 5 minutes. Drask was on his knees, exhausted and bleeding from a dozen small wounds. Ren stood over him with one claw at his throat. Every Viraki watching expected the killing blow. It was tradition. It was how power changed hands. Ren stepped back and offered his hand to help Drask stand. The crowd went completely silent. I don't need to kill you to lead, Ren said. I need your experience, your knowledge, your loyalty. Will you give them to me? Drask looked at the young warrior with something new in his eye. Something that had been dead for years. Hope. Yes, the old commander said. I will follow you. Word spread quickly through the resistance. The Alpha Son fought with strange new techniques. He showed mercy to defeated enemies. He was unlike any Viraki leader they had ever seen. Sira immediately began reorganizing the fleet. She studied their resources, their weaknesses, their hidden strengths. She created new formations and tactics based on human military history. Guerrilla warfare, hit and run attacks, misinformation campaigns. Nothing the Council would expect, but the hardest job fell to Toph. He was sent alone to meet with the Crow, a species that had every reason to kill any Viraki on sight. The Council had nearly wiped them out 50 years ago. Their hatred ran deep. Toph's ship landed on a Krell station, and he walked out with no weapons and no guards. 100 Krell surrounded him, their crab-like claws clicking with anger. "I am Toph, son of Kale," he said calmly. "I know what my people did to yours. I know you have every right to hate me. I am not here to make excuses or pretend the past did not happen." The Krell leader, a massive creature covered in armored shell, stepped forward. "Then, why are you here, Viraki?" "To admit that we were wrong, to ask for your help, and to offer you something the Council never would." Toph paused. "Equality, partnership, a seat at a new table where all species have a voice." "Pretty words," the Krell leader hissed. "Why should we believe you?" "Because I was raised by humans. And humans taught me that the only way to truly win is to make enemies into friends. Kill me if you want. But if you help us defeat the Council, you will have a chance to build a future where your children never have to fear Viraki again." The negotiations lasted 3 days. Toph did not sleep. He listened to every story of suffering the Krell shared. He apologized for each one. He cried with them over their losses. When he finally left, he had their alliance. The same story repeated across the galaxy. Syrah identified every species with reason to hate the Council. Toph visited each one, acknowledged past crimes, and offered genuine partnership. Ren demonstrated that this new Viraki force would fight with honor, taking prisoners instead of slaughtering enemies, treating the wounded instead of leaving them to die. Slowly, impossibly, an alliance formed. The insectoid Vryn joined, bringing thousands of fighters who could survive in any environment. The aquatic Delori joined, offering their powerful ships and advanced technology. The Ashk traders joined, providing supplies, information, and hidden routes through space. 40-7 species eventually flew under the same banner. Not a Viraki banner. A new symbol that Syrah designed herself. It showed different hands and claws reaching toward a common star. The Council heard rumors of this alliance and laughed. How could so many species work together? How could ancient enemies unite? It was impossible. But they had not been raised by humans. They did not understand that kindness could be stronger than cruelty. They did not know that respect could build what fear could never hold together. The fleet grew. The attacks began. Supply lines were cut. Outposts fell. Council forces started to surrender rather than fight against an enemy that treated prisoners well. And through it all, 3 young Viraki led from the front, fighting not with savage fury but with calm precision, showing mercy when they could, keeping their promises when it would have been easier to break them. The galaxy had never seen anything like it, and in a dark cell on the Viraki homeworld, Kale Vorn heard whispers from his guards. His children were alive. They had built an army. They were coming. For the first time in years, the broken Alpha allowed himself to hope. The fleet emerged from hyperspace above the Viraki homeworld like a storm made of steel and fire. Ships from 47 different species filled the sky, more than anyone had ever seen gathered in one place. The Council's defense forces looked up and felt fear for the first time in their lives. On the command ship, Syrah stood at the center of a massive tactical display. Screens showed every enemy position, every possible attack route, every weakness she had spent months identifying. Her calm voice gave orders to commanders from a dozen different species, and they obeyed without question. She had earned their trust through brilliant planning that had won battle after battle. Ren was already in his armor, ready to lead the ground assault. Beside him stood Drask and 200 of the best warriors from every species in the Alliance. They were not just fighters. They were a symbol. Different peoples working together as one. Toph sat at the communication station, broadcasting on every channel. His voice reached billions of Viraki on the planet below. People of the Viraki homeworld, this is Toph, son of Kale. We have not come to destroy you. We have come to free you. The High Council rules through fear and lies. They betrayed my father, the greatest alpha our people have ever known. They hunt down anyone who questions them. They have made enemies of half the galaxy with their cruelty. He paused to let his words sink in. But this does not have to continue. Every soldier who puts down their weapon will be treated with honor. Every citizen who wants peace will have it. We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice. We are here to build something better. The council leaders watched from their palace with fury and confusion. This was not how war worked. Enemies did not offer kindness. They did not speak of peace. This was a trick. It had to be. The council's high chancellor, a massive Varaki named Zorath, ordered all forces to fight to the death. He announced that Kale would be executed immediately in the Grand Arena. Hoping to crush the rebels' morale, it did not work the way he planned. Thousands of council soldiers heard Toph's message and hesitated. They had heard stories about this new force. Stories of enemies who were treated fairly when they surrendered. Stories of wounded soldiers being healed instead of killed. Some put down their weapons. Others simply walked away from their posts. Sarah noticed the chaos spreading through the enemy forces. Ren, you have your opening. The arena guards are leaving their positions. Go now. Ren's strike team dropped from the sky in small pods, landing around the grand arena where crowds had gathered to watch Kale die. Council loyalists rushed to stop them, but they were outnumbered by citizens who had heard Toph's words and chose to step aside. Ren moved through the arena's corridors like a ghost. His fighting style was nothing like traditional Varaki combat. He was fast, precise, controlled. Every movement had purpose. He disabled enemies instead of killing them when he could. His team followed his example. They reached the execution platform just as the guards were preparing to bring out Kale. Ren broke through the final door and saw his father for the first time in over 8 years. Kale was barely recognizable. His once proud body was thin and covered in scars. His fur had turned white from pain and age. His eyes were dim. But when he saw Ren standing there, those eyes came alive again. Ren? Kale's voice was barely a whisper. We came for you, father. All 3 of us. Syrah's voice came through Ren's communicator. Council forces are collapsing across the planet. Zorath is trying to escape. Block all escape routes, Ren ordered. We take him alive. Guards loyal to the council tried one final attack. Ren's team defeated them in minutes, moving together like they had trained for years. Which they had. Ren broke his father's chains and helped him stand. Kale leaned heavily on his son, weak from years of torture. But he was alive. He was free. How? Kale asked. How did you build such a force? How did you get so many species to follow you? Toph's voice answered through the communicator. He had linked into their channel. We made friends, father. Humans taught us how. The final battle for the council palace was surprisingly short. When the soldiers inside saw the massive Alliance fleet overhead and heard that Kale had been freed, most of them simply opened the doors and surrendered. Fear had kept them loyal. Once that fear was gone, they had no reason to fight. Zorath was captured trying to flee through a secret tunnel. Ren stood over him with claws extended. The old chancellor had ordered his family killed. He had tortured his father for years. He deserved death. But Ren remembered Sam's words. He remembered everything he had learned on New Montana. You will face trial, Ren said, putting his claws away. The people will decide your fate. Not me. Zorath could not understand. Why? I would have killed you without hesitation. I know, Ren replied. That's the difference between us. In the days that followed, the Alliance established order across the Varaki homeworld. Syrah organized the transition of power with careful precision. Prisoners were treated fairly. Former enemies were offered a chance to join the new government. Grudges were set aside in favor of building something new. Kale watched his children work with amazement. These were not the scared cubs he had left on that human cargo ship 8 years ago. They were leaders. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. "You are not Viraki," Kale said to them one evening as they sat together. "Not truly. But you are something better." "We are what humans made us," Sira said. Kale shook his head slowly. "No, you are what you chose to become. The humans showed you a different path. You had the courage to walk it. When it came time to choose a new alpha, everyone expected Ren to take the title. He had earned it. He had the strength, the skill, the respect. He refused. The days of one alpha ruling everyone are over. Ren announced to the gathered crowd of Viraki and allied species, "We will build a council where every voice matters. Viraki and Krell and Vryn and all the rest. We fight together. We live together. We make decisions together." The crowd erupted in cheers from dozens of different species. Ren became the Warden of Peace, leading the combined defense forces of the new alliance. Sira became the voice of strategy, advising leaders and planning for the future. Toph became the bridge, building relationships with species across the galaxy and healing old wounds. And Kale? Kale made one final request. 6 months later, a small ship landed on New Montana. Sam Holloway, now 65 years old, walked out of his farmhouse and saw 3 familiar figures stepping onto his land. Behind them was an older Viraki, thin and scarred, but standing tall. "Dad," Toph said, running forward and hugging Sam tightly. "We brought someone to meet you." Kale walked forward slowly and stood before Sam. The 2 fathers, one human and one alien, looked at each other for a long moment. "You saved my children," Kale said. "You raised them. You made them into the leaders who changed the galaxy." Sam smiled. "I just taught them what I knew. They did the rest themselves." Kale reached out and took Sam's hand. "I am in your debt forever. I would like to stay here, if you will allow it. I want to understand the people who raise such remarkable children." Sam looked at his kids, his aliens, his family. Ren stood tall and calm. Sira was already studying the farm with analytical eyes. Toph was grinning like the happy boy he had always been. "Welcome to New Montana," Sam said. "I hope you like soup." Kale looked confused. "What is soup?" Toph laughed and put his arm around his biological father. "Trust me, Dad. You're going to love soup." They walked into the farmhouse together, 2 families becoming one. Years later, historians would write about how the galaxy changed. They would talk about great battles and political movements and the rise of the Grand Alliance. But those who knew the truth understood that it all started much smaller. It started with one desperate father who trusted his children to humans, and humans had taught them that kindness was the greatest strength of all.